welcome everybody. It's deeply humbling to be asked to give a commencement speech. It's unlike anything I've ever done before. I've never thought about doing it. I never aspired to do it, which is saying a lot because I aspire to do a lot of things. But this was not one of them. And therefore it's really humbling for me to be asked to do this. And actually a little nerve-wracking. This is a little different than anything I've done before, where I'm not here teaching you all something. It's just me sharing what I hope will be useful for the graduates, for all of you, and just sharing a piece of myself. So thank you for indulging me. Let's see. For those of you who don't know me, the thing that's most important today is, first and foremost, I am a teacher at Southwestern. It's a role that I've been in for almost 5 years, and it's something that I take very seriously. I've heard the founder, Dr. Robert Waterman, once say that teaching is an act of love. And that's definitely my experience of it. Teaching feeds my soul in a way that deepens and strengthens my spirit. And I'm thankful for what Southwestern has given me, and I'm humbled to be asked to give this address. I've been thinking about what to say at this commencement speech for almost a year. Actually, Catherine asked me to do it last year, and I thought about it for about a day, and I said, no. I'm not your guy to do something like that. But I was inspired by last year's speech from Kate Cook, and I thought, okay, I can try this. And I had no idea what to do and to talk about until we had a Board of Trustees retreat this summer. And one of the exercises that we did was to look at various poems and pick one out of a pile that really spoke to you. And that poem is the centerpiece of what I want to talk about today. The title of the poem is Fluent by John O'Donoghue. I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding. When I read that poem, what struck me first is that's a reflection of my experience of life. It's also an appropriate metaphor for my experience as a therapist, administrator, teacher, and now an entrepreneur. However, I will say that living life like a river isn't for everybody. You can ask my wife that. The second thing that struck me when I read that poem is some deep empathy that I had for her. It must be really hard to be attached so intimately to a river when you yourself are a deep and clear lake. And so, but no matter how much I try to be a lake, I'm not. I am a river. And sometimes a raging river, sometimes a very quiet, calm river. But nevertheless, that's what I am. I am movement. It's the way I teach, it's the way I counsel, it's the way I live my life. As a way of introducing myself a little bit deeper, I also want to talk about love. And I mentioned teaching is an act of love. But what I want to talk about now is my love for the craft of psychotherapy and where that all comes from. And this craft is something that these students have spent the last few years of their life developing. It's a craft, it's an art. There is some science in it, but mostly I feel it is an art. What you do and what you don't do when you sit across from somebody is something that, to me, is a dynamic process where you're tapping into the energy and letting it guide both of you. The first time I fell in love with psychotherapy happened when I was in high school. Like many people that are in this program, and many people in this room, I bet, I was raised to be a rescuer, a savior. I was actually raised to be the savior of my family, and in some ways I was raised to be the savior of the world. Yes, I do have a delusional disorder, but it comes from somewhere. But yeah, that was kind of the light that I was held in by my mother and also by other people in my family. I was I was put on this planet to rescue others. I was raised to be the hero, the responsible one, the emotional anchor of my family, the one that had strength to hold the family together even as it was pushed over the edge. It was when I was a freshman in high school, being raised by a single mom who had profound and chronic depression, my brother who was involved in crime in multiple ways, and trying to prove to the world how much of a badass he was. Somehow he got the assignment of being a badass, and I was supposed to be the savior. So that created tension, amazingly. But yeah, so it was left to me to try and hold things together, and it was hard. I'll say that. But then a miracle happened. As overwhelmed as my mom was, she decided to put us in family counseling, and she put us in counseling in an agency that's here in Santa Fe called the Santa Fe Family Guidance Center. And the actual miracle happened when I was sitting there, and we were having a family session, and I was doing what I do, right? I was refereeing a fight. And somebody from behind a mirror comes into the room, and getting a little choked up, actually. For the first time, told me that wasn't my job. It didn't have to be my job. And that was brand new information for me. But it changed me. It changed my family. Slowly. I mean, my family's still my family. And I love my family. But they are still my family. But it started a shift in me where I felt this profound space open up to where I realized that I didn't have to do this my entire life. I could escape the family, I could do all sorts of things. And so that kind of set me out on a path, first to just get out of that dynamic, but what I discovered is, what I really wanted to do was be the person on the other side of the mirror that could actually come in and do that for somebody else. And that's when I fell in love with this work. And that love has really deepened over time. Like most good therapists, I feel we seek out our own therapy, and I've done that from time to time, and I do that now. And it just, when I do that, again, this love for this craft of what we do, it gets deeper and more informed each time I do that. But the other time I really feel the love for our craft is when I'm teaching. And it happens most profoundly when I'm teaching at Southwestern. I could be pushed to the edge of burnout, and then I have a class. And my wife can attest to this. I come home from that class sometimes at 9:30 at night after working since 7 in the morning, and I'm energized. And that's what love does, right? That's what love does to us. That's what love does for us. And another way of talking about this is also thinking of love as a state of flow. And in positive psychology, we define flow as a completely immersive experience where, I have it written down somewhere, but I've strayed so far from this. Yeah, here we go. Performing an activity in a fully immersed and energizing focus, fully involved and fully present. I get to experience that at least once per day when I'm teaching. And it feeds me. And I have had some peak flow experience as a teacher. Some of those come from helping a student, let me see, go back to my, sorry. There you go. Demonstrating an empty chair technique, working through a student's dream in front of the class, and while that person is exploring themselves, everyone in that class is engaged in learning, and we are all flowing down the river together. That flow state happens when I'm in the therapist chair too, and this is what I want to speak to now. And I'd like to share with the graduates some advice as you begin the next chapter in your journey as a therapist. Most of this advice comes through the lens of preparing for this next chapter in your life as a hero's journey. And as with all epic journeys, you will not be able to see where this newly bestowed degree is going to take you. You must simply be present, try and keep clear vision, and be open to what you experience as you enter the labyrinth. So the first piece of advice is to answer the call. This call to act, to know, to do something you have not done before that may even seem out of reach, comes from love itself. When I was a new therapist, I was often really nervous about, what if I don't know what to say? What if the client says something to me and I've got nothing? Right? I see a lot of people shaking their head. And really what I've found is, in that moment, and you have nothing, that's okay. Don't say anything. Just let the love happen. And just pay attention. Listen deeply. Let that love guide you with your clients. Let it guide you as you navigate dysfunctional agencies, licensing boards that make rules that don't make any sense. Let it guide you as you create your own professional identity, as you continue to evolve. And I would love to see what you all are doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Maybe some of you will be teaching, and that would be lovely too. The second piece of advice I can give you is to listen. Listen deeply, earnestly, patiently. Listen with your whole body. Feel. Feel your clients, feel your colleagues. Hear the echoes of your professors when you're out there in the world. But above all, listen to yourself. If you create enough space and depth in your consciousness, you can feel your way through any session. You can feel your way through any dysfunctional environment that you might come across. You can feel your way through life, whatever life gives to you. This next piece of advice comes from a woman named Pam England. Pam England is most well known for writing a book called Birthing from Within. And she has a master's degree in therapy. And one of the things that I find a lot of things useful from her, and one that I found most useful is this idea of the love warrior archetype. The warrior archetype, when it's not distorted through the lens of popular American culture, is really about acting, and acting with conviction when something requires action. And the love warrior, therefore, is to act in the service of love. And so I found this quote from a gentleman who was a protege of Don Miguel Ruiz, who was a Toltec spiritual teacher. And the quote says, "The love warrior is one who lives passionately without attachment to outcome." That's something that we're called to do as we help people. We have no idea what's going to happen to that person when they leave our office, when they leave our space. We have no control over that. Does that mean that we just resign ourselves to being helpless, that since we don't know, since we can't control, since there are too many variables that we just pull back? No, we lean forward. We lean forward with that passion. We're fully present. We experience that love, that light. We share it with them, but then we don't have attachment to outcome. And sometimes I'll tell my students, actually, attach yourself to positive outcomes. That's okay sometimes. And what I mean by that is there will be times when you can rejoice. When you will be working with somebody and you'll see something shift. And it's not because you're magical, and you shouldn't take that on as your ego, but you can rejoice in that. You can have an emotional attachment to doing good work in the world. I mean, why else would you do this if you couldn't allow yourself that indulgence? Another piece of advice I have for you is to metabolize your stress. So we're all familiar with self-care, and some people interpret self-care means that you have to create space in your life to escape your stress. Right? I don't think that works in the long run. If you want to have longevity in this field, you have to learn how to metabolize it. You have to learn that process of alchemy. How can you take depression, anxiety, fear, panic, despair, all these things that you're holding in your work, how can you metabolize that to something that helps you move forward? There are a lot of different ways to do that. My current favorite way of doing that is actually trail running. But the way that it has actually served me the longest and the most is through laughter. And with my clients too. Often I will laugh, and there's laughter through tears that happen in my sessions. And I invite you all to see that as a way to metabolize some of that stress, some of that despair. There's nothing wrong with humor, and in fact, humor is one of the ways that we can metabolize some of the darker energies that we're exposed to. And it is important that through some process of alchemy, you transform that energy so that it doesn't stick to you. If it sticks to you, you begin to smear it on other people. You can smear it on your next client, you can smear it on your partner, you can smear it on your kids. You know, that kind of sticky, dark energy, you have to come up with a strategy that works for you, that renews you, that cleanses you, that changes that energy. And then finally, the last piece that I want to leave you with is just follow the flow. If you listen, feel the energies around you, you can feel the current, and it will guide you in your sessions, your career, your life. But the danger in living in the flow, living like a river, is that it gets dangerous when you try to hold on to things too tightly and for too long. Graduation itself is a process of letting go. It doesn't mean you let go of the relationships you have with each other, with the lessons that you learned, with the faculty, with the staff. You can hold on to those, but there is a clear letting go. You're letting go of the structure of being held by Southwestern as a student. And that's what needs to happen. And that's what will allow you to see what's around the next bend. And it is my sincere hope that I will get to float by many of you and with many of you in these next few years as my colleagues. Maybe even share a waterfall or two, carried by the surprise of our own unfolding. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Now you can see why they